All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the Thursday Night Football Showdown show here on the Mayo Media Network. Hit the like on the way in. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Got Hoop, got Title with me here as always. Going to break down all things San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. Hoop, bring you in first, man. Another Thursday night game. Excited for this one. I got the stone up over here, breaking it all down. What's going on, my man? You got the Tigers gear on. Big win.
Yeah, big win yesterday, big game today, and then we kick off week 6 with what should be, I think, a pretty good game. Relatively high total, two offenses that can definitely move the ball, a lot of offensive weapons on both sides, which, again, we kind of talked about it pre-show. I think this could possibly play out similarly to what happened the other night in that Chiefs game. So we'll see. We'll talk through it all, but seems like a solid game. Total almost around 50, which is pretty rare nowadays in the NFL. So happy to see that. Excited to dive into the slate with my boys. Yeah, and also up from the way I do the slate plan on the site is I always update it like the very next morning after Monday Night Football ends. In this example, it was at 47, I believe, and now it's up to 49. So just total has moved up quite a bit. Usually it's a half point. You just don't see that much movement. Title bring you in big total, but also division game. Who knows? And sometimes these can be a letdown, or they can be everything we asked for and more when it comes to scoring. How you doing? And just your first thoughts on this game here.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see the total, but a couple injuries on the defensive side on both sides, mainly San Fran. Both offenses can move the football, so makes some sense. And yeah, I like seeing the higher totals. As far as this slate, the value's awful. So it's one of the most unique showdown slates I think we've had this year, in the fact no one might be over 15% at the captain. You have a plethora of guys that you can all mix in at captain. That makes a lot of sense. And then you just have awful value. So I'd be lying if I said it was my favorite showdown, because I think it's going to be a little harder to get difference unless you're playing these bums that are projected for almost zero and they land in the box. But I'm doing well as always, ready to talk to football.
Yeah, I thought you brought up a really unique point there, and it is a good one. That's kind of the case. We've seen I'm going to let Hoop talk about it. He was mentioning a pre-show, so I'll let him go. But just like the quarterbacks aren't getting adjusted for price. So if you just run an optimizer straight, like we did our dry run, so we'll get it out there to you guys and let you know, but the quarterbacks still pop. But on a slate like tonight, we have full strength on both sides on the offense, I should say. So when it's Purdy, Mason, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Geno, Walker, Metcalf, JSN is kind of where people are leaving it off. I know there's other dudes. I'm just saying, Hoop, I'll kick it to you, but that's just sort of the setup, but there's no real value plays to go to just from starter.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. I mean, when you start going through and looking at the captains, there's going to be a lot that are appealing, and that's kind of why we're seeing spread out ownership at the position. So if you're going to take some stands tonight, like, you're going to be able to get leverage very, very easily. And if you want to get overweight on certain guys, you're going to be able to get overweight. It looks like, I don't know, 7 or 8 of these guys probably coming in between like 6 and 15%, and nothing else like above that. So in terms of roster construction, like, you probably got to, I mean, for Showdown, always looking to leave salary on the table, but maybe even more. Maybe that's one way to get different, because there are just I talk about it a lot, but there truly just a limited number of plays tonight. We don't really have any cheapies, and a couple of these guys, 600, 1,000, like, they're projected for like 2 points, and you just talk about a lot, but we've rarely needed those sort of plays this season. So yeah, we'll see when we go through, but a lot of captains in play, a lot look good up top. And again, if you want to look to get some leverage in the captain spot, it should be pretty easy.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. And the other thing too, just we got the stone, we go through it each week, and bringing it up here for myself, just looking at it, I mentioned 9 guys. JSN sort of falls out of that group when we talk about this next part. But even for our captain optimal tonight, for the sims that we do to calculate against with our projections versus the salary, it does look pretty spread out across the 8 guys: Purdy, Mason, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Geno, Kenneth Walker, and DK Metcalf. It does leave JSN out, like I'd mentioned, but like Hoop said, it's way more about getting it right tonight than it is anything else, because you're able to get leverage on anybody you want. It's not like other nights necessarily where you're saying, if this guy's going to be a popular captain, let me squeeze him and play this guy, because if he fails, I get leverage over here. The way to get leverage tonight is to get overweight on the guys you want to have up top. Title, any further thoughts on that? And if not, you can start us off talking these captains for this slate.
Yeah, I wish I had a stronger lean, but my approach today is, because of the value being so tough, salary's pretty tight. Like, and it's always the case. I care more about my individual lineup, but I think I'm going to be like, I don't see myself having probably 25% plus of any captain. I might not have 18% plus of any captain. The reason is, if I have 25% of one captain, then you have so many more combinations of like the other 5 spots. And I just don't think I can get unique in all those spots. So I think I'm going to be playing way more captains than I always do. And it's so easy because, let's start San Fran side. Jordan Mason, the highest priced player on the slate, he's got all the work this year. He's like minus 180 to score a touchdown. He could have 25 touches. He's a 3.5 point favorite. Totally makes sense about Mason. The problem with him is, well, a lot of similar builds because value is really tough. So I'm still going to be trying to leave salary. We'll get to like defenses and stuff, but Mason, San Fran defense, people won't want to play there. I think that's interesting. So Mason will definitely be one. I'm going to leave the quarterbacks to you, Tambo, for probably the rest of the year, and I will dictate what I do with the quarterbacks after. Right now, I'm planning on playing both. Again, because I'm spreading out my captain exposure a lot, and I think people don't love to go quarterbacks. Like Mahomes, he came in, 8%, 9% at captain, and it was like 16% projected, which surprised me a little bit, but it doesn't, because clicking quarterback names with all these, Purdy gets there, why isn't it IU catching 102 and he's in the captain, or Geno with DK Lockett? So right now I'm planning on playing him, but you can always talk me out with how good you've been. I'm obviously playing Debo and Ayuk. I will be playing some Juwan Jennings in the captain, just like I'll be playing some Tyler Lockett, just like I'll be playing some JSN. And the reason for that is because pricing's so tight, mid-tier captains I think are more viable, and Juwan can get there. Again, after Ayuk came back, Kittle came back, nothing has looked like his one massive game, but I think 15 points could be enough for captain optimal. Still in a bunch of 3 receiver sets, solid receiver. Other side, Lockett, wide receiver 3 looks too cheap on this slate. Again, he is wide receiver 3 right now, but I don't think he's going to be played at the captain much. He falls in the box, scores 70 points or 70 yards. I think that could be enough. And again, I'm saying all this because I don't love playing these guys that are projected for 1 point that very well could get 0 on the slate. I'd rather real guys that are be on the field that, again, wide receiver 3-ish. I think Charbonnet can be played at the captain. If you think this game script, they're trailing, he's cutting into Kenneth Walker's workload a bit. He can catch passes out of the backfield, doesn't force you to do all these punts. So I really wish I had this guy's going to be the guy today. But I think it'd be a mistake just jamming 1 or 2 captains, because then you're just playing 1v1s with a bunch in the flex, and it's not too many options on this slate where you can do that.
I agree with the first part, disagree with the second. I'll talk about why. Just first of all, I loved your take about spreading it out, just because on this slate, the reason I disagree with the second part is because the reason I agree with the first part. So here's an example. Let's say we have 100,000 lineups in the field, and 15,000 of them are Jordan Mason. He becomes 15 just for the math's sake, to make it easy. In Showdown more than Classic slate, there's going to be a way higher percentage of those that are bad lineups, like negative AEV, super dupes, just terrible builds, because you only have to put 5 other people in with it. So if I go 15% Mason, but I don't build that way, I play defenses against captains, I play $5,000 on the table with a receiver where it makes perfect sense to me. Let's say Debo down to Jennings, it's $4,800. I'm okay with that in Showdown. Situational stuff where I don't think you'll necessarily be as duped. I think it's scarier to take a stand and just say, let me play these 3 captains tonight, because there is 8 captains that all look like they could very easily be the optimal. So that's why I'll put 2 and 2 together on to say I agree with the first part, but I think I can play the field or slightly above or below on a lot of these guys, and I can technically still be overweight. I use this example all the time in golf, but I can apply it to football here, that same Mason example. If I play 15% of him, I am technically matching the field. And some people say, oh, you're paying the rake, you're not getting any leverage, whatever. But I'm telling you, I know 15,000 lineups, 5,000 of them are probably very bad. So if my 15% is all built better, or more plus EV or less unique or more unique, less dupes, all the stuff I'm looking for in Showdown, then that's a better strategy to go at it with and why I'd be more okay with it. I don't know, Hoop, what your thoughts are, but are you taking any huge stands tonight and picking three captains, or what are you doing?
Yeah, good points just brought up there. I'm probably pretty aligned with what Title was saying. I'm just not going to get too picky with what happens in the captain. I want to make sure my teams are built properly with roster construction. I want to make sure I'm looking to do things a little bit different in the flex, get uncomfortable, but I just don't see myself getting all that picky with what I do in the captain spot. Most likely, I'll have all my information up on the site. You'll be able to have my ownerships over at SHIPIT.com. What percentage of each captain I have, but like, I don't know, like it could be any of these guys, the running backs, like Kenneth Walker. They got, played terrible last week and still got like 15 fantasy points just from a bunch of like dump offs and shit. Like he had a terrible game and still had a respectable outcome. Like he just has so much upside. Mason, I'm good with the quarterbacks. Both guys are willing to spread it out with a little bit of running upside. These wide receivers, DK, Debo, Ayuk, like all fine options. The one that does stand out to me, though, I will say, is like Kittle. Like this could just be like Kittle games. They come and they're just big, explosive games. So he's a guy I want to make sure that I have a good chunk of in the captain. Like you want him in the back and forth sort of games, and this could be it. Close spread, high total. Like he's a guy that I definitely will be looking at strongly in the captain spot. And then I'm just good with whatever I get up there. It is kind of boring. There's no like hot takes or anything. I'm going to be fine with whatever I get most likely up.
And that's why I said I'll let Title rebuttal it. But that's why I said if you were willing to take a stand tonight, I know why we're not, or why you just said it, and I tried to explain my best way through it. But if you were saying, look, the Seattle Seahawks are at home, it's likely that because their offense feels more condensed, that people are going heavier on certain builds or whatever it might be, and you say, you know what, I'm just going to go with Purdy, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, maybe a little Jennings. I'm going to commit to the 49ers at captain tonight. You still have it's high risk, high reward. If the Seahawks are what you need, Kenneth Walker, Geno, Metcalf, JSN, Lockett, you're leaving a bunch of dudes out. It's scary. But if you commit to that, you'd have, just use the example of those five, you could do 20% of all of them. Now, you don't probably need 20% Jennings, so maybe you do 10, and that gets you more of Debo and Kittle, who you want a heavy chunk to. I think you can get a double portfolio whammy of, you can have the safer portfolio lineups that are, to Title's point, more likely to be duped. But now I can have the second part of my portfolio put to that side. Again, the risk is you're leaving all the Seattle captains out in that example. So, Ty, I'll let you carry on with it. I didn't fully disagree as much as just to say I think that example explains why it's trickier tonight for some and they won't want to commit.
Yeah. So you see yourself having any captain like 30% or more? Because that would essentially be like double the field
So that's why I said I wasn't disagreeing with your method. I'm going to do what you're doing. I'm spreading out tonight for sure. Look at all these options. How
play with the field, but then the other people are bearing lineups.
Match the field and still have better lineups than the field at those percentages, and so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no, and I'm in total agreement today. Like if today's a slate where if I could match the field on these 8 captains, I'd feel totally good because I trust myself to build a dupe team that's 20 times instead of 700, which we see on some of these showdown slates. So I think that point's great. Little stuff that I'll be looking at for a captain. So instead of like plug in a Jordan Mason captain team, build all that, drop down to DK for 1.2K less, Purdy for 800 less if it makes sense. Drop down from a DK at 9K to a JSN at 7K captain. Stuff like that, leaving money. It's a tight salary slate because there's not much value, but you can see, like, why can't JSN or Lockett outscore DK? Why can't you set Juwan over Debo? It's one game. Crazier things have happened. So that's the little stuff I'll be looking at is little pivots in the captain spot. Doesn't mean I'm going to be playing Seahawks D. Doesn't mean I'm going to be playing LaVisca Chenault. Like, that's donating money. I'll be leaving some salary making pivots because there's plenty of great skill position players on both sides today. Juwan Jennings, wide receiver 3, can outscore wide receiver 1. Debo, Ayuk, whatever today. So that's the little stuff I'll be focusing on.
And this was a better example. Like Rance came through. Appreciate you, Rance, always in here supporting and said, like, maybe I'll just play mostly Hawks captains. Certainly, there's no way people are going to want to leave out all of Purdy, Mason, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle. That's what I was trying to say. If you want to roll that route, it's way scarier because listen to those names I just mentioned, the matchup, the defensive stuff with Seattle, all that stuff. It would be scary to do that. But that's where you can really pay it off. If you were to go that route on a slate where most are going to be spreading it out, we know everyone's spreading it out because the highest owned captain, to title's point, might be 15, 16%, maybe lower. We'll wait and see when the final numbers come out, but I certainly think that's another angle to look at. It was Kittle's birthday yesterday. I know everyone wants to play the birthday narrative. What if he's hungover? What if he's tired? And he's like, you know what, coach, just let me block tonight. Let me run this thing out. I can still block. I'm feeling good. I don't know. Hoop,
You think he was out partying yesterday?
I doubt it. I highly doubt it. I'm just saying.
I did see Miguel Rojas, a baseball player, was playing poker late night before game 3, which is pretty funny.
That's scary. Yeah, crazy.
That's
You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like the Kittle stuff already, so I guess it's a little added. To me, it would be an added bonus. I can't imagine he's out getting smashed the day before a game, but I guess you never know. But, yeah, I'm in on the Kittle for sure.
Yeah, I think he's fine tonight. Obviously, looks pretty good on paper. And that price savings, I know, like I said, it's not like it's super expensive for captains, for quarterbacks up top, but like Debo 13-2, you can drop down to Kittle at 11-1. So, and I just don't see the ownership going there. So you're still getting some leverage. We'll see how it actually shakes out when it's all said and done, but I like that. And to answer your question from earlier, title, the quarterbacks. Yeah, but Purdy spreads it out. I don't know how you wouldn't play Purdy. I mean, he's throwing for a ton of yards. It's a great spot. I think there's one of the best cornerbacks that Seahawks have are out this game. I forget his name. Bunting Smith. I always forget.
He's out though. The best.
Anyway, one of the dudes that's out there. And then the other thing is, he can check it down to Mason. He can throw it to Debo, Ayuk, Jennings, Kittle. There's like 5 guys right there. I mean, he can definitely spread it out. He makes sense for that. It's not that he needs to run. It's just more that he spreads it out. I think on the other side, it's tighter because you feel like it's with Geno, it's just DK and JSN. I know Lockett's there and he keeps getting, thrown under the bus by pretty much anyone and everyone. But surprisingly enough, he still has opportunity to spread it out. He does check it down to Kenneth Walker. We've seen him get 5-6 targets or whatever. He does check it down to Charbonnet. He does still have Lockett. He throws to Bobo. He's thrown to Barner for a touchdown. Like he's done a bunch of different stuff, and he can get chugging on the ground a little bit as well. So I think both quarterbacks are fine tonight, and it's really just more of a almost 50-point total game, back and forth potential. But I really will have some builds. I will say this, where I'm focused on the under, because again, I know the total kept going up, but I just know these types of games where we're waiting on this offense, all this, and then it's a division island game, and it turns out to be like 2017. And so I could definitely see that, and I'll build for that as well. Hoop, any other thoughts up top?
No, I think all really, really good points. I mean, again, just to reiterate, it's going to be spread out. There's no doubt about it. I mean, all these guys look pretty appealing. The field is going to want to get a little exposure to everyone. So if you are spreading it out, if you're building a bunch of teams, make sure, like you had talked about, doing things a little bit different with the rest of the team.
Yeah, we'll get to the kickers later too, Rance, but they did get Matthew Wright, I should note, in there for kicker with Moody out. So I wasn't sure if they were going to add him. They usually do, but they did. So we got him in here. He's 4,600 on this slate for the 49ers. We got Myers on the other side for 5K. I like both kickers tonight as well. I worry more about that if you put them up top, because if you do, you will get what you need. Like you'll feel really good about it, kind of like the Juju stuff from the other night where you got Kelsey, Mahomes, Shaheed. You pretty much got it all. You didn't even need, we were right about that, by the way, too, the other night. The Moreau touchdown, still not needed. You needed 13.6, and even after the 13.6, it was like 16.8 and above. And that was just a 39-point game across the board, right, between both sides. So you needed the fantasy points there, and I expect tonight will be pretty much the same. I know, Hoop, you talked pre-show a little bit about that, but you've been pretty right about it too, almost every week, except I think every slate except for one. Part of this pricing is that even when there is value, it's not necessarily needed. There's guys scoring touchdowns for $1,000 or $1,500 still not being required in these winning lineups.
Yeah, and that goes to like Title's point of like the mid-tier price captains, so you avoid all that garbage. You can avoid all that junk down there, which more times than not going to be on there. Like Kyle Juszczyk and Chenault or AJ Barner, like Pharaoh Brown. Do you really want to play those guys? Like if I want to play those guys in as few teams as possible tonight when I go and build my team. So if I have to make some adjustments at captain, I'll be willing to do so to avoid that trash down there.
Yeah, it's a good point too, because it kills two sides of the field when it happens, right? People are definitely putting expensive captains to jam those values, and then people are mixing those values to be more unique in the mid-range lineup. So you're killing off, if you go more mid-range captains to what we talked about earlier, and you cut off some of the top end, you cut off the low end, those lineups are dead if it goes your way, as well as all the mid-range captain lineups that use those cheapies as well. So you actually can get rid of like 40 to 50% of the field just like that. Like, talk about a leg up. That's what you're looking for and why there's still such an edge in Showdown. So love those calls. Title, I'll go to you. Let's talk about these quarterbacks more. I hit on them. Do you have anything you want to add to that? And if not, you can actually take us to running back, because I think the quarterbacks we kind of talked through already, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really have too much. I mean, quarterbacks are underpriced. Yeah, someone mentioned it. Geno had 72 yards on the ground last week, 38 the week before. Week 1, he had 30. So he's shown that he can use his legs. I still will play both quarterbacks, and I think I'll have at least 2 pass catchers with them, but I would include Charbonnet as the pass catcher. If I just had DK, Charbonnet, Geno, I'd be good with that. But overstacking both of them, playing all like Fant, Lockett, JSN with Geno, or Purdy, Jawan, Kittle, deep. Like, you can definitely do that, and I'll be looking to do that when I do play quarterback captain teams. Running back, I mean, it's really easy on the San Fran side. Jordan Mason's getting almost all the work. I say almost because this Isaac Rindo dude has got a couple touches. He stinks. Division game, close spread. I am not playing him. I'm going to throw it back. And the other side was Charbonnet and Walker. It looks like Walker's getting almost double the ownership in the flex. And on a slate where salary is really tough, 3,400 Charbonnet looks like one of the best values on the slate, 20% in the flex roughly. I'll definitely be overweight on Charbonnet today. And again, I'm fine in the captain, definitely prefer in the flex. But if, again, this is where you hand build or you tell a story, 49ers jump out quick. They're up 14-0. They're up 2 touchdowns roughly almost all game. Charbonnet will get more work as the game goes on, as the better pass catching back right there. So if he can catch 5 balls, you tell yourself a story that mid-tier, lowish captain, wouldn't even call him mid-tier, works out. I'm going to throw back to you on this, though, Tambo. The Warner, the Bobos, the use checks of the world could to be enough today with salary this tight. And it always gets you different to an extent. Most slates, I don't think so. This slate, I'm more confused. So I'm debating on what to do with like the use checks, the Bobos, because you can get unique that way. But just say 3 points use check. What are the odds he's on the optimal?
Yeah, I don't see it. That's why I haven't seen it all season. So it's like you can get 7 or 8 and you might not be on it. And that's if the score the other night didn't even cross 40 points, I don't think. I think, again, it's not, I've talked forever about real life points versus fantasy, but I'm just trying to say it just hasn't been required. So it makes it tougher. I still mix them in because I'm looking to get more uniques. I'm trying not to dupe as much. And I have a larger portfolio to allow myself to do that. I also build in sets where I'm not going to be committed my whole portfolio to spread that through it. It's a percentage of my portfolio to have outs. But I mean, Bobo's at least somewhat interesting because the way they mix around their pass catchers there, I guess fine. And there's no real value. It's really tough. Like the use checks, the Guerrerendos and these guys, like, man, they'll fit in a little bit, I'm sure, but you can't be counting on them. It's just, if it gets there, you're really lucky and everything went your way. That's what you need sometimes in Showdown, but that's what you're looking for if you're doing that.
Yeah, most people watching probably play 20 teams or less. You don't have to worry about any of those guys. You're going to lose way, way, way more times than not. It's the 150 people. You will see sharps play all them because when they win once a year and they win all the cheese by themselves, they're good. What Tam was talking about, which I try to build as well. But I try and mix in, I know ball, I know use check stinks and he's not going to be on the winner. And I know I want to make all the money in the EV and see what all the sharps do. So I try and blend it. And yeah, I probably won't play use check either.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like you said, but if you win if you're chopping up tonight, you're getting 200 something K plus or something, let's say in a 3-way chop. Yeah. Pretty good for the year, right? You're doing really well at that point. Depends on how these classic slates keep going, but you're doing pretty good for the year if you get one of those chops.
I hope you're not donating 200K in a classic slate, anybody out there.
I hope I'm not either. I'm saying it's a trend though. It always goes this way and then some good weeks here and there. It's not that bad, folks, but just saying, I think at least, somewhat interesting. Yeah, I like the thought process you had. I will say, Hoop, kicking it to you on these running backs. Kenneth Walker, man, they did save him. I was in the chat talking about Kenneth Chalker and the C Chalks for the classic slate last week. I said, I'm just worried that they're just going to hold him tight. Because remember the game before, he was coming back from injury, but he was doing like backflip samurai crossovers and shit. And you're like, oh God, this guy got to be healthy. But then they what do you have, 2 carries in the whole first half?
The Giants had the ball literally. It was the worst game ever. They had the pick 6 in the goal line for 101 yards, and Danny Dimes converted every single. Seattle couldn't have ran worse with time of possession. It was insanity.
So
it was a little mixed on that. Like
Walker could have done more, and now maybe that's the case tonight.
Yeah, tonight's the night. Tonight is the night. I do agree, though. It's like Mason, Walker. I mean, we've talked about them. Captain Flex, Charbonnet, is probably way too cheap at 3,400. He can, kind of rack up the PPR stuff. So he would be clearly a really solid option. But like, I want to avoid the used checks and Garendo people. Like, just to touch on the point, like, would we need like 3 or 4 from like a $500, $600 player? I agree with what you said, Tambo. It's like, I just don't see it on the slate. There's so many legit fantasy guys on the slate. I think like everyone does, puts up a pretty decent score. A big chunk of them does. And then you got the kickers as well that these plays would be contending with. So Mason, Walker, Charbonnet, all really solid options.
Yeah, good point too. People are gonna be so mad about the kickers again tonight. It's like they're 4,600 and 5K teams that kick all the time. Like, this is just literally a perfect spot, and people will continue to be mad. I just realized Kenny put the zip up because he's the guy that was high on Kenneth Walker, but I realized because he is Kenny W, he's no wonder he's a big Kenneth Walker III fan. He's got it all right within his name, so it all makes sense now, Kenny. We got you figured out, man. But I will say the Charbonnet thing, Title, I'll kick this to you actually, because you brought him up multiple times, and then Hoop just validated it, and I thought the same. That was the other reason. He was getting a little bit more work, check downs, things like that. But I don't think I'll play much of them together, unless even with there is a nice enough price on Charbonnet you could, but I think it would be like 5-1 Seahawks, because I think even if he's getting late work, it's probably not because the Seahawks blew them out and Walker scored 2 times. It's probably because the Seahawks got blown out, so they're not going to play Walker at the end of the game, and they'll let Charbonnet just rack up 8 catches down the stretch or something like that. That's how I could see it working out. But any thoughts just on using those guys together, and then anything else at running back? If not, you could take us to wide receiver.
My first thought is I definitely agree, but in your lower scoring builds, I think I would keep it, mainly due to the fact of just the range of Charbonnet is so bad where 8 points could be enough. And if Kenneth Walker outscores the Debos, the Ayuks of the world, I think I maybe like them, like they're both in the flex, and then I have a San Fran guy or something like that. Because Walker would need to score and outscore some of those guys up top. But the Charbonnet range, like if Jawan Jennings doesn't get there, the defenses only get you 6. Fant doesn't do too much. He gets some ownership, and Charbonnet outscores them. I wouldn't be surprised. I could see it. And then also, as you know, Tambo, anytime you play 2 running backs on the same team, it's almost always duped way less because hand builders rarely get there. So I think more than likely, but a lower scoring script, I think it could make sense. Nothing more at running back. Wide receivers, well, I mean, if you guys are definitely right, I think I'm going to tell you guys, like, why play Bobo and Chenault, all that. It's really it's really easy. You have 3 guys on both sides. You have Debo, you have Ayuk, you have Jawan Jennings getting all the 3 receiver sets. You have DK Metcalf, you have JSN, you have Tyler Lockett. So again, Bobo, I think, would be in play. He big boy, good receiver. He could catch a 40-yard touchdown. If he catches a 40-yard touchdown, you'll probably need him. Again, most people playing 20 teams or less. I wouldn't get there. As far as my favorites, I think it's going to be Jawan Jennings because I just hate all this value. So I think I'm going to say like Jawan, JSN, and then I don't know. Debo, something's telling me Debo. He just has so many ways to get there today. So I'll say he's my favorite behind Jawan, JSN, Debo. But again, like I'm spreading a lot of this stuff out. We're just narrowing our player pool. You guys have talked about the use checks, the Bobos, all that. The player pool is going to be so tight. Just how you build those without playing the same team as 400 people is the problem today.
Yeah, our guy Go Collect's in there talking about use check snap percentage inflated because of those emergency holder opportunities. Yeah, that was something last week when they lost their kicker. But in general, I know what he's talking about. Our guy Mayo is in the chat. Shout out Underdog. He's got the code Mayo. You actually got a free pick with Purdy for tonight's game, and he's all dialing it in. He's got a play ready for you guys. Always said toss on the Mason Walker rushing overs. You got a 6X going on and only gone under the 83.5 once in 5 games. So there you go. That's your play of the day from Mr. Pat Mayo. And then DePeach talks about this. We're always talking about process, strategy. And, one of the Tamboisms is if you play lighter, play tighter. If you got 20, this is what exactly I think what Title and I and even Hoop were talking about earlier tonight is if you're playing 20 max, don't be spreading it out and playing 8 captains. Like, come on. That's just not, you're going to have to, a couple lineups of each, a couple with 3. Like, it's just not the way to do it. in that, you are going to have to take your chances. And I think you play 3 or 4 at most, really. Maybe it's less. You could play 10-10. You could play 10-5-5. Like something like that is how I would do it, to each their own. But I would really try and get there because you're going to be in a larger field still. You've only got 20. So does everybody else. But everybody's going to spread it out across the board. I'd want to make sure I've got a little bit tighter captain pool. Hoop, do you have any other thoughts just if you were only playing 20 max?
Yeah, I'd probably try to narrow it down to, I don't know, maybe 4-ish captains, 5. Like if you're doing 150, obviously you can spread it out. I mean, but yeah, you want to create more paths to the top. And by narrowing it down at the captain spot, you are able to create more paths. So I don't mind that. And then in terms of the wide receiver stuff, I mean, it's kind of boring. I mean, it's the 3 on each side. I'm going to try to avoid these scrub dudes like Bobo and Chenault and Ronnie Bell. I don't want to play these guys if I don't have to. And I will sacrifice some shares of more expensive captains in order to avoid the cheap plays. But they're all very solid. You know, Debo, Ayuk, and Jennings. And I agree the Jennings price is too cheap. I don't mind playing him in the captain. And then on the other side, you got DK, JSN, and Tyler Lockett, all solid options. So I'll have heavy exposure to all and then trying to avoid the cheap.
Yeah, we talked about this already, Kenny. You must have missed it off the top. It was yesterday. Not even his birthday no more. It's a move on. You know, when you get that old, doesn't even matter anyway. The birthday's over. We have some really sharp members over in the SHIPIT Nation Discord. Illini fans, certainly one of those. And again, this does stand out to me. When we do these shows, that's kind of the fun in it. The more the show goes on, the more I start thinking about things. And what keeps coming up is Debo, Ayuk, DK Metcalf, Jennings, the Kittle stuff, all of this. And while Mason is going to be owned, he may even end up as the highest owned. Hoop, you always talk about this, getting kept in check. He's definitely getting kept in check. If all these other options are keeping probably the best spot and the best guy in check for what this team's all about, what everything that they do. People love when I say about, by the way. I got that in the comments a bunch. I must have a real thick accent on that one. I just heard it myself even, but now I'm just going through it. But the Mason talk starts to make a lot more sense for where I might get my leverage tonight. And even if it is 20 to 25 and he comes in 13 to 15, I feel pretty good about that because I'm also going to have, then I can have a more balanced Mason portfolio of, yeah, some of them will be similar, but a lot of them will be playing to be completely unique or lightly duped. So Title, just anything else you want to add on that one? Then you could take us if you have any more wide receiver, if not tight ends.
You know, the accent's strong when you catch yourself saying,
I know. There it is.
Yeah, I love it. Jake said Jake Sawales, our guy, says I say Jags weird. So I don't know. A lot of people in here chirping accents, I guess. But tight end, I guess it's just how you playing that AJ Barner dude. Like him, Bobo, Juszczyk, Garindo. If you're playing 150 teams, you will see a lot of the best players in the world do it. Our stance right here, most people don't play 150. I don't play 150. I'm going to X them out after all of our talks, not expecting 4 to be enough. And then it's Fant and Kittle. What I will say is, man, Fant's got to get ownership just because value's so tough and he's on the field. He's like the 5th option. Like, I don't like that value at all. And I guess that's why I keep talking Charbonnet, Jennings, because I like them a lot more. We're going to get to defenses, kickers. I'm going to be playing all of them in the range more than Fant. No, I'm not going to X them out. If I was playing 10 teams or less, I probably would have no Fant. I think it'll be over-owned. Target share is awful. Almost all of their targets are dump-offs in the flat as the 4th read. So, yeah, I like Kittle. I don't like too much Fant. But, again, you can't just X out Fant with the limited options we have down below.
Yeah, Go Collect brought it up. Speaking of Mayo being in here earlier, Darius Break the Slayton absolutely did. He was on the perfect lineup, not just the winning lineups. He was on the absolute optimal last week, so there was certainly that. But don't forget, Tracy Jr. had a pretty good game, too, in the exact same spot. And Jordan Mason. Kenneth Walker's on my mind now, too. He's the other running back in this game that we can go to. But I think Jordan Mason also in a spot up for sure as well. So, Hoop, I'll go to you. The tight end talk that Title just went through, like Fant, too cheap, probably does get a lot more ownership in the flex than what we expect and saw. And not much up top, I don't think, but just in general, he'll be involved. Thoughts on Fant, and then any love for anybody else when it comes to tight end? You've already talked a lot about Kittle.
Yeah, well, I'm just kind of the same page as Title. Like Fant to me is probably like one of the worst value plays, and you're probably going to get a lot of ownership just because of the price. And really that's the last price people are going to want to go to, the 3K. People are not going to want to go below 3K on the slate. So he probably does get ownership. I'm going to play him. Don't get me wrong, but I don't feel great about it. Definitely prefer him in the Geno captain teams. I think that's the best way to use Fant in the flex on those Geno captain teams. Love Kittle, like I talked about. You want him in these high scoring games, the back and forth stuff. If we get that, I think he could have a massive game. I already talked about it. And then with the Pharaoh Brown thing, he's in that group of guys that I want to avoid if possible. Again, I haven't built teams yet, so I got to see, but I'm going to do my best to avoid the cheap shit plays like Pharaoh Brown. And he's in that category for me tonight. And then same with Barner. You can throw Barner in that mix as well. The cheap shit punts, I don't want a lot of them, trying to avoid it. We'll see what happens when I build teams. And like I said, I build after the show and everything will be updated on the site. So you guys will know exactly where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a couple more things in a second, but a good segue. Shout out to our girl, Drea. She got in there right away, got the pre-order. I should have noted this off the top. I forgot, but the new merch did go live on the site today. The replenish of everything else, bunch of orders coming through over the last couple of days. We got some out to our founding family and now some stuff for what's left, the limited quantities for those out there. You can use code MERCH10. You just go to SHIPIT Nation, go under shop, merch. Merch 10 gets you 10% off as much. And for any members, we are going to be giving away one member a free order. So whatever you buy, one person's going to win their order. The blue hoodies are what I'm excited about. The Travis Matthew logo hats with the mesh back. But shout out to Drea. She got in. Get back to it here. Tweezy says, he mentions it here. Just one sec, guys. The triple entendre, something screaming ground game. It just keeps coming up the more the show goes on. It kind of fits my narrative of if it doesn't end up being the 49-point total that it kept creeping up towards all week. And then Mayo liked it earlier too. He said get the Mason and the Walker ground game overs. So yeah, I just think that's somewhat interesting. You'll definitely have to get different elsewhere because, even with the, limited captain ownership and spread out, I should say, up top, you are still going to see people be able to fill it out easily to Title's point with like a Fant, Ayuk, or whatever you get in there. So I just think in general, that's why some of those plays will come into play, Title, that we don't want to play, but they kind of just have to if you go that route, right?
For sure. Again, I always am trying to look at the best players in the world, what they play. They always are playing these bums down below because when it does win, and they're playing guys like Jacob Cowing or something, like guys that I could never click and it feels like donating, but next thing you know, someone's winning $500K with one of those dudes and they're good for 2 years. That's the mindset. Just know when you play like that, your swings are roller coasters.
We've been waiting for this slate too. Tweezy's all over tonight. Tweezy, you might have a big win tonight. This could be something. Play your game, man. Play your game. Leave money on the table, like you said. Certainly could be a thing. Lots of good stuff out there. New one said, I got that. The wife was yelling to hurry up, hurry up. You got in on the original order, so you're certainly set. You'll be on the first shipment. Shout out to Beetle Bang, got mine. Ross got his. So lots of people are getting involved, getting the merch. We appreciate it. Obviously, we don't try and make a bunch of money on that stuff. We just want to look good, feel good, rep the brand, and then keep it rolling. It's not our main process here. We're trying to help you guys win at DFS, find success, get your own process, get better at the game. But Hoop, anything with these kickers and Ds that you want to talk about? That's next up on the agenda here.
I always play kickers, and whatever happens with the D happens.
Thank you. It's kind of boring. I'm kind of boring today because not predictable, but it's like I don't know. It's the same thing. The one thing I will say, we got this new kicker with Moody out, Matthew Wright, and if it was Moody would be much higher owned than Wright is. So I'm looking to take advantage of that situation with a guy like, Matthew Wright, who I'm sure can freaking kick field goals. I mean, all these dudes, they come off the streets and they're kicking 55-yarders. So I'm going to take my chance with Wright, get overweight on him. I'm going to play it as if it's Moody, to be honest with you. Whatever I would envision in my head for Moody, I'm going to play it right that way, and I'll definitely be overweight on him. And then Jason Myers is fine. He's been double digits 3 out of 5 games, and then an 8-pointer as well. So very good with the kickers, and then like my boy said, Title D. Whatever I get on the D, I get, and what are they, 42 and 3,800? Yeah, so whatever I get, I get.
Yeah, so Matthew Wright, here we go. Got the stats from 2020 up to now. He's kicked 47 field goal attempts. Title. How many think you think he's made?
43.
40. So he's worse than you think. A long of 49, and he's 35 for 37 on extra points. Guy's terrible. 7 field goals and 2 missed extra points. That's where someone said stud. I don't know, man. That seems like pretty bad stats overall. But I guess he's got to warm up, right? So maybe today is the game Matthew gets right, and has himself a good one. I like Hoops thought Moody would definitely be a little bit. Yeah, probably too. That's a shot at my Ravens there, but it is true. Justin Tucker, very bad so far this season. So Matthew Wright, kind of like Justin Tucker is what you're saying. And overall Hall of Famer, but hopefully he does something tonight. But I like Hoops' take that usually you would see Moody with much higher ownership. And because it's not Moody, there's a potential that you don't see it as high just because. Title, anything you want to add on these guys at all?
Well, your boy Tucker stepped up against the Bengals and McPherson shit his pants. So
we needed that bad. That was definitely lucky after the Lamar fumble. Oh,
yeah, I thought it was crazy game. Yeah, the fumble I thought was all she wrote. And come on, McPherson. But I hope it's a defense day, man. Like with such a condensed player pool for me and salary being pretty tough, these defenses have to be really low. I'm going to play the kickers too. Don't get me wrong. But 4,200 for the Niners D. People are going to go Jawan Jennings more for cheaper, Charbonnet more for cheaper. And I think the kickers, Wright and Myers more. Seahawks D, same thing. Like, why play? Who wants to play defenses in a 50-point total, really, when Fant's a little cheaper, Charbonnet's cheaper. So just naturally to get different, I'm going to be including defenses. Going when you play Walker and captain or Mason and captain, I even like bumping those the defenses on the same team a little more with a little correlation. And then kickers wise, I mean, they're nuking. Why can't, in a low scoring game, why can't, even maybe not, Myers and Wright outscore JSN, Lockett, Kittle, Ayuk even, Debo even. If it is Mason just getting all the work on the ground, getting all the touchdowns, passing game bust, that allows you to leave 3K, 4K, etc. So I'll be playing all four of them. Defenses will be low owned, kickers will be moderate, and I'm hoping at least one of the defenses on the winner for once because it's been tough out there this year.
I'm going to have more of both than usual just because of what my take was, at least on one of my sets tonight, and I'll talk about it in the slate plan more on the site later, but I am certainly going to target a potential lower scoring game that does involve the defenses and kickers a little bit more. Mistakes are made, things like that, because I think the other lineups, like you said, they're just, once you fill them out with a mid-range captain, you either have to play the losers that we are kind of saying they're losers, but just you don't want to play as much of them anyway, or you have different build types this way. So I like the setup to be able to go this route a little bit more than usual. So I think that's certainly something. Justin says loves the Monday review show. The Takedown Breakdown is live on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. I know we're here on the Mayo Media Network. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel. We're here every Thursday, but I would say for sure, get over to the SHIPIT Nation YouTube. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. You guys have been great at helping us out. The Takedown Breakdown is there every Monday. And to answer Justin's question, it's a teaser. It's another phase coming at SHIPIT Nation, but there is something big coming here in the future where we will have the opportunity for more shows like that and certain circumstantial shows around sort of getting better and process in your game in general. So that's just a little teaser for you guys. But Hoop, anything else you want to add at all? Just maybe now that we've talked through it, circle back. We've got a little bit of time, like the captains. Did it tighten anything up for you? Did it change your mind on anything? Or you just sort of feel the same way that we went throughout the whole show?
Yeah, so I did a run as we were kind of talking, more of what I'm going to probably do. Not a dry run. It's more of what I am probably going to do tonight. Something, what I envision myself doing. And I did quickly realize that I don't need the punts. Like I can get what I want and I still don't need the punts and nothing is showing up as crazy ownership on guys I don't want to have high ownership on. So I think it's possible to do what, I think we all kind of talked about and like to some degree is avoiding those just full on shit dudes. So I think it's very possible to do that on the slate while accomplishing your goals at the captain. So I did want to just point that out before we hit on some FanDuel stuff.
Yeah, and I want to point out one more thing too, because speaking of that's your run, kind of what you're thinking of, the dry run. I don't know if you remember this, Hoop, but there was a guy in the flex on your dry run the other night that you're getting 70% of.
Should have left it.
Ended up being the winning captain on the slate, which was a one Juju Smith-Schuster. And tonight, that guy actually looks like Jawan Jennings. Jawan Jennings popping up in 40 or 50%, depending on your run. And captain, he's not really popping up, getting like 2% just because it's a dry run. But you can adjust that. And I think Jennings is somewhat interesting. 6,000 at the captain. You will have to get unique in the flex. But I also don't see him getting huge ownership in the captain, right? I think he's going to be 2% or less or something. So I definitely think that's a possibility to go that route if you want to follow the Juju stuff from the other night. Title, any final thoughts from you on the slate or wrapping it up before we go to FanDuel of just things you might have changed your mind on or things you feel better about now that we've talked through it all?
I feel better fading all those bums because the reasons you guys talked about. And then it's just really going to be because I'm so concentrated. I'm just really going to try and paint a story. Leaving salary is always good, but dropping Debo down to Kittle. You need to do more than that sometimes. That's 1,400. JSN down to the kickers. That's 2K plus. Defenses will be really low owned. Jawan Jennings captains. The JSN Lockett captains. So, no, I'm kind of, from the beginning, just said I'm going to be spread out, but now I'm going to be excluding all those other guys. So player pool will be tight. Captain, player pool will be pretty wide. Flex naturally will be pretty tight. I'll be leaving money, and I'll be just be looking at these pivots that I can paint a story. And then game script wise, how do you see it going? If you have Kenneth Walker in the captain, your team should look a lot different than if you have Brandon Ayuk in the captain, et cetera. So, let's do some FanDuel.
Yeah, we'll do some FanDuel. Kenny, I thought a dry run was what happened with your marriage when you lose too much at DFS. Just got to know how to formulate the graph a little bit better. You got to finagle it a little bit. Make sure you can still show the arrow up on the graph. That's all you got to do, my friend.
Don't show them anything.
I hope a lot. Yes, I hope there's not many wives watching, which I feel pretty confident it's a very, very low number. But man, just don't let the ladies involved in the finances, fellas. It's never going to work out well. And if they do get involved, make sure there's some skewed numbers, like you said. Maybe make sure you adjust the charts before they get in there. Like that's rule number one when it comes to DFS and gambling. Obviously, don't lose your freaking house and all that shit. Like that's obviously rule number one. But when it comes to the ladies, you gotta massage it in there a little bit. They can't handle the raw information.
Don't believe the myths. Don't be racking up your credit cards beyond belief where they're calling your friends and family looking to see what's going on with you. I mean, that happens out there most certainly.
Oh, yeah.
And realistically, Jaya, I don't think he sucks. I'm making fun of the numbers. He does have 47 opportunities, 37 field goal time, extra point attempt. I'm just making fun of it. I think he's fine. I think he's certainly useful tonight. I don't think there's any reason they're not going to be scared to go to him. They're going to trust him. Whether or not it works out, I can't tell you, but I can tell you I was just making fun of his numbers. Like 40 for 47 sounds bad on paper. It's over the last almost 5 years now at this point. So that's just another thing to bring up. Oh, baby, we got the real deal just came through. Snoop a Loop on it. It ain't George Kittle's birthday. His birthday was yesterday. All these other sites out there and shows talking about George Kittle Birthday Express. It's Geno Smith's actual birthday today. This man is 34 years old today. The Seahawks put up 34 points. Geno's the number one captain. There we go. Geno Smith.
Crazy. Everyone's talking Kittle the whole time. It took us 47 minutes to realize there's actually a birthday on
There's an actual birthday, like a legitimate player
that matters.
Birthday.
The round 2, 39th pick back in 2013. Geno Smith back in the mix, baby. Here we go. So Libra season, they said. Here we go.
Oh, shit. What was I going to say? Fuck, I already forgot. We'll move on.
Yeah, McAfee talked about it. So, yeah, people aren't paying attention, though. I haven't heard that one out there today. So that's the first I heard of it. So I like that. All right, cool. Any FanDuel stuff, Hoop, that you've got? I mean, certainly something to look at tonight. I think the quarterbacks will be really popular over there, maybe Mason as well. But give me your quick thoughts at FanDuel over there.
Really bad pricing on the quarterbacks, like really, really bad. Purdy at 13K and then Geno at 14.5. We talked about avoiding the punts. You're going to be able to play those guys and still avoid the punts just because of how cheap they are. Mason at 15.5. I imagine he's not going to get squeezed a little bit, but he's like the only guy that's up in that range. Walker's at 14, and then all the wide receivers. Debo 12.5, Metcalf 12, Ayuk 11. So like they basically took all these wide receivers essentially and just took them down 500. But that's kind of what the projections are. They're all pretty close in terms of projections. They're all solid plays. Again, Kittle just stands out to me. Maybe Kittle and Geno go back-to-back birthdays. Maybe they'll both have some big games tonight. So maybe that's the call. Kittle, and it's not that wouldn't be like a hot take or anything, but Kittle and Geno in some way, shape, or form on the optimal tonight, I think is what is going to happen. Myers 8,500. He's cheap, so I don't know. Again, it's the same thing. I don't really want to play these guys down here. Fant at 7,500 is probably as low as I want to go. I mean, I'm probably going to have to play some more on FanDuel, but don't love it by any means.
I was going to say too, the paying up for probability seems like a real thing on FanDuel because Mason at 15.5, not only is the fact that Purdy's only 13K going to boost him up, being that they're on that team, it's easier to stack up, less value on the slate as a whole. But a lot of people aren't going to want to stack Purdy with Mason. So you're going to double down. You're going to be able to get Mason lower owned everywhere, but if you put him up in the MVP spot, even better. And then you could leave Purdy out. You're sort of doubling down because Purdy's going to be probably 85% owned on FanDuel across both flex or any flex. They call it an MVP. So I like that. And then I also like the flip side, like you mentioned there, Hoop, the opposite side. It could end up being half the ownership with Geno up top. Birthday Geno, man. It's going down. So I don't know. I like this one. Geno Smith could be a guy over there as well. Kenneth Walker, another guy, he's priced up. Like all those dudes, 14, 14.5, and 15.5, when you can just play Purdy or Debo at 13 or 12.5. I really like that. So I think FanDuel, again, it won't be interesting because it always still chops a million ways, but Hoop's the king of chopping over there, so he probably still loves it, but at least you can feel like you're getting a little bit better early on.
I will say the call in the show, it wasn't at the time, it was a hot take. The call on last show, I said either Juju or Watson would be in the optimal, right? And Juju nuked, and did Watson do anything? I think did he get 0?
No.
Yeah. So I mean,
Juju have a good day. He took care of Juju.
Correct. So that was the call last show. The call today, it's going to be some way, shape, or form, Kittle or Geno, one of those two up top, and then the other one in flex is going to be on the winner.
All right, the double birthday express. You got the actual birthday and the day late birthday, the belated birthday title. Any FanDuel thoughts you want to go through here?
Like you said, Jordan, you guys covered it well. Jordan Mason, because of his price, especially in the flex, like he'll still be played at MVP, but flex, I think, will be very low owned. So if you can build a game where Jordan Mason still does well, but someone outscores them, that's interesting. With value being so tough, that's another reason Mason will be even lower owned. I don't see anyone below Fant either at 7.5. You're going to the Juszczyk, Barners, Garindos of the world. Even that Bobo, only 1K less. And then I do think Walker or Purdy, Mason, Geno do soak up so much of the MVP ownership. Why can't DK, Debo, IU, Kittle, Kenneth Walker, etc.? So many other pivots that are going to be probably sub 10% at MVP with the bonus over there as well. All of them could be the highest score on the slate, and it's a lot easier to get different going that way.
I like it. Juice is in here. Juice, it's your week. Will Levis week, buddy. $4,800. Single stack them. Pick your poison, Hopkins or Ridley, and you're good to go. I kind of like Ridley, but yeah, we'll have the main slate stuff up after today. Get through the showdown stuff first and get after the weekend, but closer to Saturday. But it is Will Levis week for him. Another thing too with the main slate, the contest, the big guy by SHIPIT Nation. You go to my X account at ToeTagginTambo. The link is there. I think there's only like 600 or 700 spots left, but it's completely rake free. It's a $5 5 max, the best tournament on DraftKings that you can get into. $150 for 9th and 10th, $12.50. You see the very balanced structure, so easy to get on that. And if you want to go over to SHIPIT Nation, also the free email education course, you just got to put your email in and click send me lesson 1. You get right into the mix. 5 days, a ton of members and a ton of people took this course and said they loved it. So certainly something you're going to want to check out. Join the nation. If you want to get in on the action, we did have a little Prime sale. Amazon Prime, we just leached onto them and said, let's have a deal over at SHIPIT Nation. NHL 15 to lock in 15% off. It's all access. It's shipped advisor plans, weekly, right up to annual, but you can get in now with that code if you guys want to. Hoop, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, let's start out the week strong. Another week here, week 6. So let's get in that winner circle, get those SHIPIT Nation logos to the top of the leaderboard. And lastly, go Tigers.
The Tigers, baby. You're going to be cheering for that. I hope it's not a big letdown for you as the thing goes on, but the Lions were good to you last year. Close. Now it's the Tigers.
Well, the thing with the Tigers is, talking to a buddy yesterday, is at the game, and it's a free roll from here on out. I mean, there's zero expectations. I mean, literally zero expectations. So you can't be disappointed however this ends, no matter what. It's a free roll.
Yeah, that's a good call. I think that's the best way to look at it too. So title, anything from you, man? Final thoughts?
Let's win some money this week. Big week. What are we? Week 5? Oh, 6. I wish it was week 5. Bye week started week 5. So, we'll be back.
It's 6.
It's week 6. NHL's back. Next thing you know, NBA will be back at the end of the month. So this is the time of the year as a DFS fan, all the money to be won. So keep a good bankroll, diversify, check out all the content at SHIPIT Nation. Shout out Nades, a great NHL. He's done great NHL work so far, but he had an awesome little thread that he did in the Stone, man. That is awesome stuff. Great addition for all the sports over here.
Yeah, certainly something we're excited to have that for NHL. Expect to have it for NBA as well, which is what Jordan's talking about. We're only 12 days away. October 22nd, the return of NBA. We'll be working on the stone for that as well. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Hit that like on the way out. Make sure you're subscribed to the Mayo Media Network. Go over to the YouTube station for Ship It Nation. Get subscribed there for Hoop, for Title, for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it!